T-Mobile Arena. It will be Max Holloway defending against Frankie the Answer Edgar. Fresh off of this announcement, Frankie Edgar joins us here on the ESPN 5 Rounds podcast. Frankie, thank you very much for joining us. And I want to start with this. Just tell us about the process of finally getting this fight made official and the back and forths as I guess you get out of your car.
Yeah, all good now. Yeah, no, we kind of expected this fight to go down, after getting hurt and, just was waiting for a date. So I didn't know if it was going to be April or March, and turns out March 3rd is the date for it.
How happy are you and how relieved are you that this fight is finally happening through everything that's happened in the last year?
Yeah, I'm excited. This definitely could have went a different way. Me getting injured was definitely unfortunate. And, he obviously Aldo had to go in there. He had to go in there again with Aldo. He had to get that win for me and him to line it up. And, other contenders are trying to vie for the title, but it seemed like everything turned out the way it was supposed to. And, here we are, March 3rd, we're going to get down.
Let me ask you this. Max Holloway has gotten a lot of praise in 2017, certainly deservedly so, and many outlets labeled him Fighter of the Year. How does that sit with you?
Yeah, I think it's warranted, man. He's kind of been going and, just running through everyone. What he did to Aldo's last two fights is very impressive. He's a young kid. He's got a bright future. And, he's living up to the champion status that he has right now.
Frankie, you said that this could have gone another way. Could it have really? Brian Ortega went out and he got a great win against Cub Swanson. Don't get me wrong. That was a fantastic performance. And then there was some talk a little bit about, maybe him jumping ahead. But even then he himself said, well, I can't jump Frankie Edgar. That's Frankie Edgar. And Dana White put that to bed real quickly. Were you that nervous about it or did it seem like it was always yours?
I seemed like it was always mine, but, I've been in this case before where, I thought I was getting a title fight. I was told I was getting a title fight, by Dana and Lorenzo himself, at one point, and then the next night those plans got ruined. So, you're really never too sure until you sign that bout agreement.
Yeah. Yeah. What, you mentioned the rematch, obviously. Max goes in and defeats Jose a second time. Did you pick up anything? You're looking at this through a different perspective than we are. What was the difference in the second fight from the first fight, if there was any?
I don't think there was that much of a difference between the first and second. I think Holloway just, believed himself a little more, so was able to get on Aldo, I think, a little quicker. First rounds of both fights, I thought Aldo, could have won, especially in the first round. I think he won. Second round, possibly because he kind of came out guns blazing. But, I don't think he learned from the first fight. He really didn't, mind his gas, and he seemed like he got a little gassed. And Max, he just pours it on. So he was able to do that again the second time around.
Yeah, in my eyes, Max does a lot of things well, but I think one thing that really sticks out to me, and I think a lot of people would agree with me on this, is, and you mentioned it, the confidence level. Sometimes we take that for granted. We think, guys are champions and they have that confidence. Is he riding a little bit of a different confidence level, though, because of the 10-fight win streak and just the run that he's been on? Is that something that's sort of unique to him, or is that something that, you've seen in other opponents before?
I'm sure, winning has a way of just making you believe in your own hype, and, the way he's been winning, that's just only going to greater that confidence, each time out. And, he seems to be doing that, especially he's young, too. As he gets older, you get more confidence in just your own skin.
Hey, that's a good point. You are 36 years old. He's 26. Who has the advantage in that?
I guess that depends who you ask. I don't know. I don't feel old. I don't feel slower. I definitely have the experience. But he is a younger guy. This is definitely a young man's sport. But I think I'm beating that clock a little bit myself.
So, Frankie, when, as you've gone on in your UFC career, you're saying you're 36 years old, what sort of changes have you done in training, or what are you doing? Is it like a smarter versus more kind of thing? Like, what kind of changes have you made over the years to adapt and become, the veteran fighter that you are?
I don't think I made too many changes. I've always trained hard. I spar, rather hard. I've learned to cut out the fat, I guess, cut out the unnecessary stuff. Yeah, but to me, if I was doing something at 26, if I can't do it at 36, that's a problem. So I try to kind of keep the same workload. Definitely a little smarter about it. Sometimes I'd be a little over. I'd overtrain at times. I think I've learned not to do that. But I'm still training hard. I'm still trying to push my limits. Still trying to find that same gauge every camp to make sure that I know I can. If I'm doing it in training, I can do it in the cage.
Obviously, you'll be talking about Max a lot over the coming months. Before we transition to that completely, I did want to ask your opinion on Aldo. He's a guy that you fought twice. He's a guy who's been, I think it's very safe to call him a legend in the sport. He's been a little disgruntled. He didn't get that Conor McGregor rematch back when he thought he should have. He's talked about, wanting to finish up his contract with the UFC and get out of the sport. What do you make of where Jose Aldo is at in his career, just as, kind of an analyst and a guy in that division?
Yeah, I think he's got to look at himself in the mirror and see if he really wants to, go at it. I'm not saying that his last performance looked like he didn't, but, there was rumblings, I think, even before me and him were going to fight, that he didn't want to fight anymore. He was thinking about retiring. So I know when you have one foot in the door, one foot out, that's just tough to really make that full commitment. And I don't know if that's what he's struggling with right now. But he is a legend. He's done so many, he right now the best featherweight to do this, based on his credentials, at least at this point. But, yeah, he's got to really decide whether he wants to do this or not.
Hey, Frankie, sorry, Brett, I just wanted to ask, since you have your analyst hat on, this weekend, you've recently fought Jeremy Stephens. He's facing Doo Ho Choi. Any thoughts on that fight?
Man, that's just going to be a barn burner. Two guys that sling it, that love slinging it, love throwing heat. That's a pick 'em fight, and guys that are I don't want to say reckless, but sometimes they can get reckless. You never know what's going to happen.
Frankie, you mentioned, having one foot out of the door, one foot in. You've never had a problem with that, but what's the closest you've ever come to that? What's like, when you were chasing Conor McGregor and that fight didn't materialize, or when you were mentioning Lorenzo and Dana are telling you you're getting a title fight and then you don't, whether it was some injury or whatever, what's the closest you've ever had to thinking, maybe I am 1 foot out the door here a little bit? Has that ever even come close to happening?
No, I don't think it ever come close to happening. But my lowest part of my career, where I was like second guessing myself, was when I lost those 3 title fights in a row. They're all pretty much razor close decisions, and it was just real disheartening, man. Put heart and soul into something and expecting it to happen. I don't train for these fights and go in these fights saying, I did my best. I go in there thinking I'm going to win every time, and when you lose close ones like that, that definitely that puts a damper on things. And that was a tough part of my career, but being able to bounce back from that definitely taught me a lot of lessons.
Do you feel like this fight with Max is quote unquote bigger now, even than it would have been in December, because he went in and finished Aldo again, because the year finished and he was named Fighter of the Year so many times? Do you feel like the fight is actually bigger than it would have been in December, or not necessarily?
Yeah, I think so. It's got more people talking about it. We almost got there. I think I was like 3 weeks before my fight where I got injured. So we were, getting close to kind of coming to that apex, and now here we are. We got 2 more months to build it up again. And, I think it is going to be a bigger fight this time around.
How much do you feel that? You guys get asked all the time, like, is this a big fight? Is there a lot of pressure on this? And the standard answer is, well, every fight is the biggest fight of my life. You hear that all the time from athletes. Is that true? Or is that the politically correct answer when you're getting interviewed?
It's definitely the politically correct answer. I've definitely used that answer myself.
I think you've done it with me a couple times.
I've probably done it with you, right? You are in this sport. You really are only as good as your last fight. So, realistically, that fight is the most important. But there's definitely more emphasis on other fights than others. This one for me. I'm a realist. I know this is probably my last opportunity at this title. So this definitely is my most important fight. There's no BS behind that.
Yeah.
Are there any fights in your past like that you look back on now and say, yeah, that was the most important fight of my career?
I think my fight with Sean Shirk was one of my most important ones. I was fighting a former world champion, and maybe just for my own mental rights, just knowing that I can go in there and perform against the very best. That was a very important fight for me. And then, the title fight, the first BJ fight, going out there fighting a guy that nobody expected me to win. I think that was very important for me. That definitely put me on the scene as a player in this game.
What is something that you've learned that stands out about these big fights? Like you just mentioned, you're a realist, and this could be your last chance to win a UFC title. That's a lot of pressure. What have you learned in the past that can help you, handle that well?
Just try to be even keel going into it. It's hard. I'm very critical of myself, and sometimes if I have a bad sparring session, I'll be really hard on myself, almost like I just lost a fight, and that's just not, it's not so good to have the ups and downs in your training camp. You kind of want to be even keel going into the fight, and that's what I try to do a lot more nowadays.
13 years now you've been doing this. When you look back on your professional career, how do you feel about it? You guys aren't always real super reflective, and us as journalists, we ask you to do that. If you wouldn't mind, when you look back on your career, what are your general thoughts on it?
Yeah, I guess I'm proud of my career. I don't like looking back too yet, because I feel like looking back is for the end, and I don't think I'm there yet. But I'm proud of what I've done in my career. I think I've lived up to my expectations as far as demanding everything from myself and making sure I do everything the correct way. I didn't want to get into the sport and half-ass anything. If you half-ass the sport, most likely you won't be successful. But even as guys get successful, they start to half-ass it, and I think they don't last as long. I think, you see me, I've been at the top of this for quite some time now, and it's because I haven't changed since day one. I'm still as hungry as I ever was. I still, put my time in the gym. I still have the great people around me, and those are all good things, because you hear a lot of horror stories in people's careers and stuff that they wish they can do, go back and do again. And I really don't regret anything. Obviously some decisions maybe I regret, but it's just the way the cards fall at times.
Is there one that you can share with us?
I mean, yeah, both those Benson Henderson fights. Those are super close. I definitely don't think I lost them, but I lost them. If you look at the record books, they have an L by my name, so I did lose them. What
could you have done differently in those fights?
I don't know. The first one, not get hit by that up kick in the first round, end of the first or second round.
Yep.
I think that kind of changed the fight a little bit, but I still thought I was able to squeeze that one out. But in the second one, I don't know what to do. I thought I won 4 rounds to 1. So, but again, that's just the way it goes.
Hey, one thing I don't think I've ever asked you this is, what was that flight like back from Japan after taking that up kick? Was that a difficult one?
Yeah, I was a little sedated probably on the way back too, so
Yeah.
It was a long flight. My head was hurting. It wasn't the most fun.
Hey, let me ask you this: if you beat Max Holloway on March 3rd, you become the featherweight champion. That will be your second UFC title. Obviously, you were the former lightweight champion. It used to be, and maybe it still is, that was a big deal. There really wasn't a lot of guys who had done that for a very, very long time. For years, it was BJ Penn and Randy Couture, and everybody knew those two names, and everybody held that up as that is a very, very, very significant achievement in the sport. And now within the last 2 years, we've seen Conor McGregor do it. He knocks out Aldo, immediately goes up, finishes Eddie Alvarez. He's a two-weight champion. And now George St. Pierre recently coming back from a 4-year layoff and beating Michael Bisping. Do you still think that is viewed as big of a deal as it historically has been, or do you think that some of the shine has been taken away from that accomplishment?
I guess it's been taken away a little bit. The more people do it, the less exclusive it is. But, it's still special. The reason Conor and George did it, I'm not saying, they did it because they got it done, number one, but they were allowed to do it, and that's kind of, I'd say, Conor going out there and asking for it. I think in the past, many people didn't ask to do stuff like that. But I think even in the past, I don't know if they would have let guys do that. So now the fact that they let guys do that, like George come out of retirement and fight for the belt right away, in the past, I don't think that would have gone down like that. So that's why it might have been a little harder back then as opposed to today.
And being in the featherweight division, are you happy that Conor McGregor's sort of not in the conversation right now? The fact that he is no longer the featherweight champion, and that's not necessarily a distraction in the division anymore?
No, man. When Conor brings to the each weight class is something no one else can. He brings a lot of tension, a lot of just glitz and glamour, I guess, to it, and gets people talking about it. So when he's not there, it's good because I guess the title's moving and whatnot. But when he is there, that becomes opportunities for a big money fight and obviously a lot of attention on you.
As a guy who knows fighting, you think Conor McGregor will ever be the same after the big payday at Floyd? Like, do you think he'll ever realize the potential that he may have realized without that fight?
Yeah, I don't know. I really can't speak for that. Winning $300 million is got to change you, I'm sure. I always, people say, hey, if you won that money, would you still fight? If I won the lottery, I would still fight. I really would, just because I enjoy fighting. If Conor's that guy, then yeah, we'll see him back in there. But again, when you're fighting and you have that $300 million in your bank account, maybe your hunger is not there as much.
Does Frankie Edgar play the lottery?
No, I don't. So,
like $500 million Powerball, nothing like that.
I may have done it once. I don't know. I'm not into it.
All right. Well, I guess we'll never have to deal with that. That would be pretty amazing if Frankie Edgar had $330 million in the bank. What is the, did someone win the Powerball? I thought wasn't it up to like $400 million recently? If you had $400 million in the bank, you'd still be fighting, huh? You'd be taking on the young, fresh up-and-comers?
Yeah, I mean, I would. I mean, my exit might be a little quicker than I would have planned, but I'd still get at it.
Well, speaking about the up-and-comers then, if you win the title, let's say you're the featherweight champion come March 4th, do you have that same mindset that you had 7 years ago when you were the lightweight champion of, defend the belt, line them up? Is that still your mentality, or do you think you would have a different mentality if you were holding the championship?
No, I want to defend the belt. That's what you're supposed to do as a champion, right? That's what Holloway's doing. I think that's the right way to play it. I win this belt. I want to defend it hopefully in July. Something like that, maybe International Fight Week.
Wow. Do you prefer taking fights, if you had your choice, would you prefer taking fights stateside? I mean, you fought in Abu Dhabi, you fought in Japan. Would you rather fight overseas or exotic locations you haven't seen before? Or are you happy fighting in Las Vegas and say, Madison Square Garden?
Yeah, I'd rather pick those two spots over probably anywhere.
Those long flights. Yeah, forget those long flights.
It's tough. It's long flights. It's the food. It's more expensive to get your team out there. There's a lot of downside to it. I mean, it's awesome. Listen, I'll never take it back. Get to see the Philippines, Abu Dhabi, Japan. I mean, when would I ever get to do something like that? And but if I had my choice, Vegas, the Garden, it's good to me.
Hey, I got two more questions left. One of them is you did an interview with Flow Combat, and one of the statements that you said stuck out to me, and I don't have it in front of me, but it was something to the effect of, I love it when people doubt me. I want to go out and prove all the losers who have never done anything with their lives wrong. That's almost better than the victory itself. And that sounded sort of uncharacteristic of Frankie Edgar. You usually don't come at people like that. Have you been? Did you feel like, was it frustrating when you were injured? Did you get some hate? Did you get fed up with some social media reaction? Where did that statement come from?
Yeah, I think my problem was I looked at Twitter probably before I did the interview and seen someone talking smack. So. Yeah, that's what it was. I was a little hyped up in that interview. I was having fun with it, and it is a little uncharacteristic of me, but it's true, man. Most of these dudes that talk junk and have something to say haven't done anything, in their lives. So, I don't really sweat them, but yeah, it's fun coming around. Like sometimes I want to screenshot the stuff they say, and then after I win, I'd love to go back and send them something, but I'm just not that guy to do that. But sometimes it feels good, to prove these people wrong.
Yeah, human nature. You can only ignore it for so long, probably, right?
Yes.
How often are you checking Twitter, Frankie? Do you check your mentions every day, multiple times a day, once a week?
I used to. I used to be bad with it. I'm trying to get better, man. I'm trying to lead an example for my kids, man. I don't want to be on my phone all the damn time. So I try to set it to, certain times a day, but like right now when I know that the mentions are hot right now just because my fight got announced, I kind of try to stay away from them a little bit because I don't want to see the negativity. If I get any negativity, boom, you're getting blocked. That's my thing. I don't like negativity in my life.
Hey, last question for me. People are still buzzing about that Khabib Nurmagomedov performance against Edson Barboza. Obviously, Edson very well. What were your thoughts on that fight watching it? I mean,
Khabib is just an animal. We all knew he was. I thought Edson was going to match up well with him because, I know what Edson's capable of. But he took Edson into deep water early. And, early on I was like, I don't know how long this fight's going to last. And Edson just showed his heart and his fighting spirit like not many people can. And, I mean, I tip my hat to him. He's, he could have easily got out of there. And he decided to, keep fighting. And not only keep fighting, just hang on, but he was throwing some wheel kicks in the third, trying to find a way to win. So, he got nothing but respect from me.
When you're watching that fight, and I'm going to ask you to be an analyst again, is Edson making mistakes? Can he do anything? Or, I think a lot of us watched that fight and said, well, they could do that 100 times and it would look the exact same every single time. Did he make mistakes, or is Khabib, is there something that he's doing that just nobody can stop right now?
I think a little bit of both, there's always someone out there. We see it time and time again. I think Edson, backed up to the fence a little bit and then threw. I think he needed to maybe, pivot on his punches a little more. But again, Khabib is the best at doing that. So until someone could figure it out, I guess, yeah, he could do that to anybody.
Last question from me, Frankie, is let's talk about your other endeavors. You have a gym. Tell us about that. You're approaching a 1-year anniversary. Is that correct?
Yeah, we're having my UFC gym year anniversary party. We've been open a little longer than a year, but we've been kind of like slacking on the anniversary party. So we're having it January 20th. I'm going to teach some classes, doing some stuff. Going to obviously do a viewing party for UFC 220. Yeah, it's going good, man. I enjoy it. It's part of my life. This is what I do for a living. I'm, in sports. I'm in MMA, so I figured what better thing to do than open the UFC gym.
What's been the most surprising thing about your first year as a gym owner?
Just the ups and downs and getting the right people in. I don't run it on a day-to-day basis, but I'm definitely overseeing things and getting updates. And you got to just find the right pieces to make everything work correctly. And I think we're doing a good job of that now. How
are the kids doing? One of my favorite short viral videos of all time is still when they did the Ice Bucket Challenge and they dropped the bucket on your head. It remains to this day one of my favorite videos. How are the kids doing?
They're good, man. They're good, man. My oldest just turned 9 today. My middle one's 7, and my daughter's 3. So they're a handful. I got my middle one wrestling. My other one plays basketball. We got our hands full.
So they're already teaching classes at your gym, is what you're saying?
Yeah, a little bit. They come in assistant coaching with me.
Yeah, exactly. So Frankie Edgar, thank you very much for joining us here on the ESPN 5 Rounds podcast, and we'll definitely be watching UFC 222 in Las Vegas as Frankie Edgar challenges for the featherweight championship against Max Holloway. Thank you very much, Frankie.
No, thank you guys. It was a pleasure. Talk to you soon.